So as you guys know, I spent almost 10 hours the other night on stream making a balance feedback doc that got to the top page of Reddit. And the CEO actually confirmed that they did in fact see this document. So I wanted to post a summary on it because some of you guys were asking me to. You don't want to go watch the whole 10-hour stream on why so many guns in the game honestly just feel bad to use. And that I think almost all of the guns in the game need buffed, like almost across the board with like very few exceptions. And some of you might be asking, wouldn't buffing all the guns just make the game easier? And the answer to that is yes, a little bit, absolutely. You know, buffing all the guns probably would make the game a little bit easier. But I also don't think that the game's difficulty really is tied to the guns. You know, this game mainly is a knowledge check. And let me give you an example. So the other night I was streaming, making a primary weapons tier list as us YouTubers do, and I was using every primary weapon in the game against the automatons, one after another. And my simplest way to rate these guns is when I am just running around and I come across a POI and I see a group of enemies and my primary weapon's in my hand. And I just all of a sudden think to myself, you know, I look at my primary weapon and I'm like, I really don't want to shoot this primary weapon at these enemies. The second I get that thought, I know that I'm not putting this gun anywhere above the B tier. And to be honest, it's not even going above C tier. It's only going to make it into B tier if it has some utility. Kind of like the crossbow. The crossbow has pretty poor reload speed, fire rate, all of that. It is pretty satisfying to get headshots against bots with, but it can also close fabricators, and it can kill scout striders in the leg in 3 or 4 shots. I can't exactly remember right this second. So even though the crossbow feels like a C tier weapon to shoot, I'll stick it into B tier because there is some extra utility with it. And at the same time, when I'm testing other guns like the Liberator and the Liberator Penetrator, which Liberator I stuck into C tier, Liberator Penetrator I stuck into D tier. It's not like we lost any of those missions or we lost any of those games. You know, I had my autocannon on my back. I was using great stratagems like the Eagle Airstrike and 120 barrages to help me when I needed it. The games where I was using bad primary weapons didn't just become more difficult, and I was never really in danger of losing, at least I don't think. It's just that there's many guns in the game that flat out don't feel good to use, but there are reliable weapons like the autocannon, and there are some good primary weapons as well, like the Plasma Punisher. And when I'm using these guns, it's not like the game is necessarily any easier. It's just that when I walk into a group of enemies, I actually want to shoot a gun like the Plasma Punisher at them. So that's where the Helldivers 2 Balance Manifesto comes in. This Google document that I made is all about breakpoints. Now, you probably wouldn't be surprised to learn that every single gun in the game, or at least most of them, is falling short of key breakpoints, even guns that they had previously buffed. Even support weapons like anti-tank launchers and the spear don't reach critical breakpoints that also make them feel bad to use in many situations. Now, this leads to making fighting heavier enemies feel bad, which actually led them to nerfing the spawn rates of heavy enemies in the same patch that they introduced Behemoth Chargers, because the community was complaining about the heavy spawns. And when they introduced the Charger Behemoth itself, that hurt the breakpoints of anti-tank weapons even further, which is what led to the flamethrower meta. And this is the real problem. The guns in this game are designed to not meet the breakpoints of the many enemies they are meant to counter. So what does that mean? What is a breakpoint? Well, let's just look at an enemy like the Devastator. Their weak point is obviously their head, and these heads have 125 HP. So let's just look at your starter weapon, the Liberator, which has 60 damage. 2 shots from the Liberator deal 120 damage. What that means is you actually need to fire 3 shots into the head of the Devastator, even though you only need 5 more damage. Do you get the picture here? The Liberator is quite literally 5 damage short of a key breakpoint. And because the Devastator's head is kind of small, and because, you know, the shielded ones partially block their face a little bit sometimes, and also because the bots constantly aim punch you, landing 3 headshots not only takes some pretty good accuracy, but I just think it's pretty apparent that they have balanced that this gun in particular to be barely short of killing the Devastator. And what I've learned when doing the math for every other gun in the game against multiple enemies, I want to say I've tested every enemy against some of these guns and a lot of them against the other guns in the game, is that every single gun is just barely shy of doing enough damage to kill things. Now there's a few other things to take into account with the damage formulas, like damage drop off for example. Let's say we buff the Liberator by just that 5 damage we need to kill the Devastator. 2 shots would deal 130 damage, and that's enough to kill him. But there is damage drop off in this game. The moment the bullet leaves the barrel of your gun, it starts losing damage. So it would only be able to kill the Devastator from like medium to close range. And since automatons are more long range enemies, we would honestly want the Liberator to go up to 70 damage. That way you can 2-shot them from longer range. And fall off damage is another thing in this game that messes with breakpoints. For example, the Hunters on higher difficulty have 175 health, but since the Liberator does 60 damage, 3 shots from a Liberator would only deal 180 damage. Except that, in this case, since it's 3 shots, and even if you're in just medium range from a Hunter, there's a good chance that you might have to be a little bit closer to make sure those 3 shots shoot it to the body. So this is one gun and 2 examples where the breakpoints are suffering, honestly. All of the enemy H pools are very intricately balanced so that the guns just don't meet these breakpoints. And one other thing I would like to point out about Hunters is all of their legs and their 2 front claws are 60 health. And guess what? Guess what that means? The Liberator does 60 damage, but the moment the bullet leaves the barrel, it loses essentially a damage. So if you accidentally are a little bit inaccurate, you put 1 bullet into the leg, you won't even shoot off the leg of the Hunter with the Liberator. It takes 2 shots from a Liberator to shoot the leg off of a Hunter. Now, one other thing I want to show you guys is the Brood Commander head. Now, a Brood Commander head has 200 health, it is 60% durable, and it is light armor. So what's durable damage? Well, each gun has a hidden durable damage stat. In this case, the Liberator has 60 damage base, but 14 durable damage. So what would we do to figure out how many shots it takes to kill a Brood Commander? What we do is take the durable damage and multiply that by 0.6, and then we take the normal damage and multiply that by 0.4, which is the remainder from 60 to 100%. And we get these 2 numbers, which then we add together to get 32.4. Now there's actually also a 50% armor matching penalty in this game. So when you're getting red hit markers, that means that you're shooting more armor than the enemy has. When you're getting white hit markers, that means you're matching the armor and you're doing half the damage. And if you get the bouncing hit marker, that means you don't have enough armor, so you're dealing no damage. So we cut 32.4 in half. After we cut that in half, we take 200 health from the Brood Commander and we divide it by the true damage of the Liberator, which again is the normal damage combined with the durable damage percentages. And this means the Liberator can kill a Brood Commander in 12.3 shots, which basically just means it's going to take 13 shots. Now that example is way more convoluted, but I just wanted to teach you guys the basics of damage in this game. There's breakpoints, drop-off damage, durable damage, as well as the armor penalty. Now, if we're being real, the Liberator is not the best option of a primary weapon either. However, like I said, what I learned from making this document is that every time I plugged in a weapon's damage against some of the enemies in this game, including some of the more powerful support weapons in the game like the Spear and the Recoilless, they also fell just short of notable breakpoints. So let's take a look at the Spear, for example. Well, how many of you guys have shot a Spear at a Hulk and it ended up hitting it in the body and it just doesn't die? The Hulk body is 1,250 health, and the Spear deals 1,000 impact damage at armor pierce 7, and then it deals 200 splash damage at armor pierce 5. The Spear basically deals 1,200 damage total. Now, technically, there is that armor pierce 5 penalty, since that is matching the Hulk's body armor. The Spear is actually 150 damage short of killing a Hulk to the body. And given that you can't aim the Spear, you can't really make it hit the Hulk's eye, the rocket kind of just flies at it and hits any part of the enemy's body. And also given that the Spear only has 4 ammo in it, I feel that the Spear should be able to one-shot a Hulk no matter where you hit it, because a Hulk is not like some sort of rare super elite. It's honestly just a normal elite. It's almost as common as Chargers. And this is sort of the problem that most people are having with the balance philosophy of the developers. Your spear hits the body of the Hulk and it leaves it at 150 HP. So what can I do in this case? Okay, for example, let's throw an eagle strafing run over towards that Hulk to finish it off. Or you know what? We can use some teamwork. My buddy can now just shoot that Hulk in the body with one railgun shot and finish it off. He doesn't even need to aim for the eye. So doesn't this sort of balancing encourage teamwork? Yeah, I guess it does. Teamwork to take down one Hulk. But what about the other 5 Hulks, 2 tanks, and a factory strider coming my way? Even if we're not talking about the highest difficulty in the game and we're talking where most of the players play, which I think is level 7, like, come on, there's more than one Hulk on your screen at any given moment. I would think that the teamwork comes in from dealing with the rest of the enemies on all of our screens. So now let's just mention that anti-tanks do 650 damage, but cannon turrets, which also includes annihilator tanks, those have 750 health, which means if you shoot them once with any anti-tank, it leaves them at 100 health left over, and you would need to use teamwork to finish them off. So even our strongest support weapons with the worst ammo economy suffer from time to kill being too high. I'm just gonna throw up the Adjudicator on the screen because if they gave it just 10 more damage, it would hit all of these breakpoints. And if you'd like to see the rest of the stuff in this Google Doc, just go ahead and click the link in the description and you can see all the different breakpoints in the game. So one other thing I wanted to talk about, which I received pushback on, was I said to remove Behemoth Chargers like somewhere near the top of this document. And I just want to make it very clear to you guys, when Behemoth Chargers came out, I posted 2 videos of how to kill them. I posted one day 1 just to help some players out because people were complaining about them. And then I did more in-depth testing and posted a day 2 video showing a massive amount of ways to kill charger behemoths. I am not complaining that behemoth chargers are hard to kill. All I'm saying is that the second patch of this game, they nerfed charger heads so that anti-tanks could one-shot them. Because in the first patch of this game, everybody was using the railgun for that exact reason. It was just the best gun for dealing with chargers. None of the rocket launchers could one-shot them. And so they essentially reversed that whenever they introduced Behemoth Chargers. And what happened? The flamethrower meta came about and we all saw the flamethrower get nerfed. So I'm not complaining about Behemoth Chargers. It's not like they're that super hard to deal with a number of other weapons. I am just simply stating the fact that an enemy like Behemoth Chargers messes up the breakpoints for anti-tank weapons, and it specifically hurts that class of weapons, and it overall hurts the meta. The entire point of me making this document is to say that if you bring a counter to an enemy, it should effectively deal with that enemy. Since anti-tanks are the most ammo-hungry weapons, I think that they should one-shot chargers, which is just a normal sort of elite enemy. And I would consider like Bile Titans and Factory Striders super elites. Those kinds of enemies, which are way more rare, are fine to take more ammo. With Impalers in the game, I don't know what to consider those, but for what it's worth, I do think anti-tanks should be one-shotting their legs, because even if they did, weapons like the grenade launcher and autocannon would be much better at just spamming their tentacles and killing them that way anyway. Now, another thing here I would like to point out is the difficulty in this game, because I think it's a much more nuanced conversation to have here. And I'd also like to talk about what actually makes a game difficult but fair, and what makes a game fun to play but there's still a challenge to it. And in my opinion, making the guns suboptimal for killing the enemies that they feel like they're supposed to, and balancing the game that way and making the game difficult that way, is what led to the Helldivers in the situation that it's in now, where it feels like they're constantly nerfing things, where it feels like war bonds are coming out with slightly weak weapons. And this isn't even a video where I'm like mad about this stuff. I just think that I would rather see them approach difficulty with some of the new enemies they're adding. Let me give you an example. I think that stalkers, gunships, and impalers are probably the enemies that make me feel challenged the most. Even the new Scout Striders, to be honest, because when I'm in combat and I'm just shooting down normal mobs, all of a sudden one of those enemies show up, and it just all makes me make a decision in my head. I kind of have to stop what I'm doing and deal with those kinds of enemies. So I do think that that's one really good form of difficulty, is creating enemies that you have to deal with, rather than just making enemies feel bad to shoot your guns at. And I also think Odo has made multiple videos talking about teamwork in this game, and he has said that the only true teamwork in this game is the buddy bunker. And it's funny he's honestly right, because the missions themselves can be done solo, and the missions themselves are somewhat easy. You just walk into an area, kill all the enemies, click a few buttons, spin a wheel, turn on the transformer. Sometimes you gotta carry the SSD across the map, and I do think that there's a lot of new sort of challenging missions that they should be looking to add rather than what we have now. But with that being said, I will go to some theory crafting, and we will do that in future videos. This video was just to summarize my balance document and explain why the guns feel so bad to use.